Oh, they're in the waiting room. Okay, so I'll definitely post this for people who cannot attend. So what's up? What kind of questions do we have? Any questions? Is it me that can't hear? Question? No question? Any question? Nothing? Can I hear well? Oh, yay, Patrice is going to ask a question. Go ahead, Patrice.
Yeah. I didn't really have a question because the material was pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't watched the lecture about the quiz number 3 yet, but yeah, that was the only one, and I was a little bit confused about that module a little bit. But
well, I'll go over the quick points of the quiz. Now, the exam, sorry. It opens tomorrow, right? There's like 17 points, but they're each 1 point. So, before it was 0.05, now it's 1 point. So do well. So think about it. What do we need to know? Hans Morgenthau, his contribution to national security. What is power?
To Lele's iPhone ribbon.
Power is ambiguous. So we got to know that. That's the thing. That one of the reasons why I talk about like Nicaragua, Vietnam, and all these places, that's Nicaragua behind me, is because even though the United States is the most, one of the most powerful countries in the world, if not the most powerful, we still can lose. Why? Because power is ambiguous. That's very, very important. And Morgenthau went through just a broad spectrum of different things of power, industrial power, even power of counterinsurgency. How come, the United States wasn't able to root out the Viet Cong? So there's different types of power there. Even like with Russia and the Ukraine, there's power and a lot of balance of power, which we're going to get into, but definitely know that for Morgenthau. Any questions about that? Nothing? Quiet group. Now, I'm going to ask you, counterinsurgency and beyond. We read that. It's in the lecture, etc. What approach did that reflect? Who remembers? No one remembers? You're young kids. You're supposed to remember better than me.
Are you talking about like the ambiguity, or are you talking about the different ways that you have to approach like strategies and tactics?
Exactly. The different ways, strategies, and tactics. It begins with an F. What was the approach? Who remembers? Nobody remembers. What?
Dang it. I can't remember.
Oh, no. No one remembers in this.
Was it the fusion approach?
Right. Where you're supposed to, they were using not just guns, but guns and butter, for lack of a better term, basically sending Missouri people out, the National Guard who knew something about agriculture, etc. That's what they want to do, is diversify the way people go to war. So it's not just about, beating people in the generic sense, right? Like you win a war, but you have to win hearts and minds and other things. That's different from the purist approach that wants to kind of fund and train the military in a way that's just military oriented. That's very different. A lot of my soldiers who I have students say that it is going in that direction, the more fusionist approach. Now, the article, even though we already know who won, can Pompeo and Bolton exist? That's really important for a more bureaucratic infighting approach. It's kind of like what I call the bureaucratic politics model, where when you understand national security, you have to study, right? You have to study the bureaucratic players. So we're not going to just study, Joe Biden, Trump, or whoever wins the primary, and then that. We got to understand the people who are going to be around them. So if you ever go to a primary or a debate or something like that, always ask who are the people they're going to tap for, like Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, etc. These people have the ear of the president. And that's not just from a U.S. perspective. Like you could make the same argument for Mexico, Canada, Europe, Russia, etc. So like understanding that would make a good paper too. Like who has the president's ear, and it doesn't have to be the United States of America. You could do one on Russia, Ukraine, etc. Who are, and both the Ukraine and Russia have kind of shaken things up a bit when things don't go their way. Like some people are on the in, some people on the out. In the case of Camp Pompeo and Bolton coexist, Bolton was the one that got kind of kicked out, and Pompeo had Trump's ear. Now, don't forget the very lamentable Myanmar documentary. Very sad. A lot of people say they really don't like it because, it's just so difficult. But what that does is it's really interesting because it deals with, human rights, genocide, but also like state actors, non-state actors, neighboring states like Bangladesh. Bangladesh is already the most densely populated country in the world, I believe. It's up there in the top 2 or 3 at least. And can it handle more refugees? That's one of the issue with the documentary in Myanmar, where are the Rohingya people going to go? So it's very important to kind of understand that from a national security perspective. The other thing is, remember the documentaries on the Cuban Missile Crisis and Estonia. What did that reflect? Who remembers? No one remembers? Oh, you're going to do bad on the quiz. No, the exam, midterm exam, 17 points.
Are you talking about the balance of power?
Exactly. And it's not just the balance of power, good thinking, but it's also that these national security agendas, like the balance of power, transcend culture, time, and geography. So Cuba used it in the 1960s, and then Estonia was trying to use it in the more present day. So good thinking. Yeah, I mean, balance of power, but it's a theory that kind of, goes beyond any time.
Are you talking about the Angola?
I don't think Angola is on this one. Isn't Angola on the next?
No, it was from the previous one, but that was about kind of like alliances and balance of power as well, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. Good thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just thinking about directly the exam because I don't want to. But yeah, that's another thing that goes beyond culture, space, and time is these kinds of alliance building that's going on now. Angola, most people don't think, oh, what's important about Angola? But it was actually a hotbed after Portugal left. And it's always been kind of on the radar for the United States, just like what's going on in Niger, which I don't think personally countries care about democracy. They care more about self-interest. It's a lamentable world, but that's what I would argue. You do not have to agree with me on anything. My article, Log Rolling in Plan Colombia, is definitely on it because I wrote it and I need the attention. See, no one's going to read our articles if I don't give it to you. That's about the economic influences of national security. So if you look at like log rolling in Plan Colombia, you can also apply that to the Ukrainian crisis, right? Like, all these companies, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and other places did very, very well with these kind of policies. So they are lobbying in the background, whether they have the last say in the politics of national security is a different debate, but they're definitely there. And it's an economic way to see national security. Any questions about that? Comments? Nothing? We'll see how you do. Let's take a look. Centro Andino bombing, that's me in Colombia. And the goal there is about urban terrorism. Very difficult. The same thing goes with the Nogales one. Very difficult to root out, right? Because it's like, who knows who did these attacks. And when I lived in Latin America, I knew a lot of guerrilleros that are people fighting. And they basically, during the day, they were like a student like you. And then at night, they'd go and blow something up. So it's very difficult to see, how, who carries out these attacks. Even to this day, people like to say they know who did like 9/11. Well, remember, we did 9/11 against Allende. That happened on 9/11, 73, when we overthrew Allende for Pinochet. But the 9/11 that happened here in the United States, people like to say they know who did it, but I'm not sure if we know who did it. Now they're trying to drag Saudi Arabia into it. We got to see how these things pan out. The current crisis in the Persian Gulf in the context of hybrid warfare. That's reflected national security by highlighting the role of everything there. That's non-state actors, state actors, cyber warfare. I really like that article, so you know it's going to be on there because it talks about something you don't think about, Lebanon, but the whole idea of hybrid warfare. So warfare now is not just like state actors. It can be non-state actors, compound warfare, these kinds of, violence specialists, cyber warfare, etc. If you haven't read the article, read it. It's a good read and not that long. Anything about that? Okay. And then after we'll open it up to Q&A, so I'll just go through it. Constructivism, meaning ideas and norms in national security. That's very important because it kind of challenges the traditional national security, like national security is just say, territory. And Vietnam is everything. Vietnam is all the asymmetric effects, non-conventional power is ambiguous, etc. Because think about it, Vietnam, when we went into Vietnam, we're the world power, but yet we lost. And LBJ used to call the Vietnamese pajama people because they didn't have regular conventional uniforms. So he kind of denigrated them. That's very, very problematic because you never underestimate your opponents. That shows you power is ambiguous, right? You can take on Germany and Japan, but you can't beat the Viet Cong. The compound warfare, that's all about irregular forces. Now, just like in the Russian-Ukraine conflict I talk about, irregular forces sometimes you might see them called paramilitaries, like military, but paramilitaries. What they are kind of like non-state actors. They're somewhat linked to the state, but like not very much linked to the state. Like they might be people who are just, they need food, jobs, whatever. So they get kind of hired off the cuff, kind of contracted out. You could even consider maybe the Wagner Group, if that still exists as a compound warfare. We have these private military contractors, and then you just have kind of thugs in a lot of these developing countries that work that way. Very, very important. And then we get into the Colombian peace process, incorporating these ex-combatants into society. So if you notice, we talked about a lot like national security policies, but then what about after national security fights? So you even look at after the Ukraine crisis, if there is an after, I don't see it yet, but if there will be, what do you do with all these ex-combatants? And this is very, very important because think of Russia. I mean, Russia, I think, is prepared for the Ukraine. Well, was prepared. We'll see how it pans out because they had all those Chechen wars. And after they killed the Chechen soldiers, the Black Widows came up. Instead, they were the wives of the ex-soldiers that fell, that died, the casualties of the Chechen war. So it's like, even after you defeat, like Putin was able to defeat the Chechen rebels, after the Black Widows came back and committed quote unquote terrorist attacks. Of course, terrorism is a loaded term. I personally don't like it, but that's very, very important. Ooh, that'll be on the quiz too. My argument is Russia was quite prepared because of the Black Widows, but the Black Widows is basically women who lost their husbands fighting against Russians. But I think it also, adds to national security, since Russia, I think, is a little more prepared than people think, like for the long haul. Remember, Dora Maria Taya is one of my favorites. The intersubjective understanding, a friend of mine, she was considered a terrorist, although what is a terrorist? It's an intersubjective understanding. So you don't know what a terrorist is. The same thing goes for like us. We defeated, if you're from the United States, I'm from the United States, we defeated the Brits. Yay. Has a name. Good for you. Ooh, view. Now let me see. Go ahead, Beatrice.
Yeah, I did have a question, and it was like related to a previous topic, but I've been waiting for a minute. When we were talking about terrorism, I have a question that is kind of out of curiosity, because I was wondering how everything that we were talking about, so like different state actors, non-state actors, what kind of implication may have for a future, and basically like how will we handle that?
Right. In what specific case, though?
I mean, I was preparing my debate for the discussion board, and I was just like, okay, so that's how we have handled so far, but what will we do in the future? Like, whatever we have done so far hasn't been really successful, we can say. Like,
Right. I would say really quick, and we'll try to kind of relate it to the exam. When you look at that article on the Persian Gulf, is it that kind of tries to get to compound warfare, all these different kinds of warfares. And they're all together now. I don't know whether the United States has been bad or good, but if you're thinking of it from a U.S. perspective. But it is true. I mean, we failed in Afghanistan. I don't see Iraq as particularly a good situation. In fact, I would say Iraq, the biggest winner there was Iran, because it took out, Saddam Hussein and kind of the buffer of Iran, and Iran expanded in it. That's why that debate on killing of the Iranian general is very, very important, because I think we still have it. I had it before. I don't know if I've been switching them around, but when we killed the Iranian general, what were they doing in Iraq in the first place? I mean, Iran was never in Iraq. So I think a lot of these wars we just haven't been prepared for. And that's even smaller ones like Haiti, taking out Aristide in 2004 was a total disaster. And we see kind of the repercussions now. And also Grenada in the 80s and stuff. The United States doesn't have, maybe because we go into countries so much, we are not that well prepared. It's a difficult question to answer because, you have to be in the policy and be prepared. But it seems to me, being a little older than a lot of people here, I don't know how old you are, but it seems like it's the same thing all the time. Vietnam, we were in Angola before, Vietnam, Angola, Nicaragua, etc., Iraq, Afghanistan, that countries don't really learn from their mistakes, and maybe people are like that. That's a very difficult question. I don't know how we're going to be able to deal with it. Or Russia. And that's a good question to posit, like a good final paper if you don't have one. Like, what is going to happen? Even if the Russia was able to get huge swaths of the Ukraine, will there be then asymmetric attacks against the Russians? Meaning, like, people start, attacking the Russians even after they have controlled the land in asymmetric attacks, so you don't even know who the people are. So, like, I talk about Dora Maria Tejas. Will there be 1,000 Dora Maria Tejas in the Ukraine, even if the Russia is able to hold on to it? So I don't know if Russia is 100% prepared for the aftermath of this, because basically asymmetrical terrorism, quote unquote terrorism, right, highlights the role of these innovative attacks, because opposing your forces you can't do, so you go kind of underground. Has anyone here seen the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
No, I did not.
It's funny because it's like the people who he's on the side of the United States, whatever, and he tells his children and others, do not fight. That is Mel Gibson. Do not fight the British one-on-one. You know the land, you know this area, go around and basically commit terrorists. What he said about the UN's involvement, I am thinking. I'm not sure about. Oh, yeah, that'll be on there. Good thinking, Lily. Mearsheimer in the Ukraine. Mearsheimer in the Ukraine is on there, and it's basically Mearsheimer is very sensitive to other countries' national security issues. So his argument is we pushed NATO too far near the Russia's border. In fact, I was saying this in my political violence course today, is that when we were bombing Serbia with NATO, we keep saying, no, NATO's a defensive force. But we use NATO for Serbia, the former Yugoslavia, Libya, and Afghanistan. Those are 3 battles or 3 conflicts that someone could say are pretty offensive in nature. So, it is interesting that Mearsheimer makes the argument, so this is basically in a nutshell, that NATO expansion helped fuel the crisis and Russia's support to invade the Ukraine, if you know what I mean. Let me see. I'm trying to say, why was the U.S. even? No, I'm sorry. What I said was, Sophia, is how was Iran in Iraq in the first place? Basically, when we invaded Iraq, we created, in my opinion, maybe so, I don't know if there are any soldiers here that were there, chaos, which gave Iran leeway into Iraq. Basically, Iran had no influence in Iraq when Saddam Hussein was in power whatsoever. After the invasion with the Shia, obviously Shias came to power, etc. Iran started to get power in Iran. So from my point of view, the Iraq war strengthened Iranian power in the region. You don't have to agree with me or anything else. So yeah, and Caitlin, you said, yeah, NATO involved. Okay, I see. Yeah, so that's Mearsheimer's argument is NATO expansion helped fuel kind of Putin and Russia's decision to invade not just the Ukraine, but Georgia, Crimea, and other places. Good questions there you people have. Yeah, I would. Yeah, the Sunni Shia. In my opinion, unless we have Sunni Shias here that want to disagree or agree, basically it was a Sunni country, although it basically Shia, the majority. But once Saddam Hussein was removed, the Shias took power. There's very chaotic. ISIS grew and stuff like that, and Iran started to exert influence in the nation, which basically never happened before. Oh, that would be a good question. But the Patriot's interesting because the Patriot, if you see the movie, you don't have to see the movie, but the value of it is that asymmetrical warfare, right, was used in the conflict since the colonists, if you're from, and I'm from Massachusetts, there you go. So like Lexington, Concord, and all that area, I've been many times, basically was like an asymmetrical warfare against the British. So, we use those tactics ourselves. So that's pretty interesting. What other questions do we have? Looking here. Any questions? Because that's all that's on the exam rally. So I went through like Dora Maria Tejas, asymmetrical terrorism, Mearsheimer, Ukraine, the expansion of NATO, big problem. What I just said about the Patriot, that's important because basically the movie shows the United States as a kind of asymmetrical warfare. Colombian peace process, Russia and the Black Widows. The Black Widows were women married to ex-soldiers from Chechnya who then started quote-unquote terrorist attacks on Russian soil after they defeated the thing. So watch out, people are going to come back and get you. Vietnam, I'm always talking about Vietnam for all that problem, like problems with counterinsurgency, invisibility, non-conventional power is ambiguous, etc. What other questions do we have? Anything I'm missing here? Would you say the exam was more? Yeah, it's like the quizzes. That's one of the goals. It's not to surprise you, basically. That's a good question, basically, because it's not to surprise you. It's like to kind of give you continuity. So you're like, okay, I know what I'm getting into. Because I know a lot of our online students are hard workers. Some have full-time job, kids. That's why they become. So the goal, in my class, I do the same thing. So the goal is kind of like, not to throw you off or to trick you, but to keep the same kind of format going. However, this one is 1 point each. So watch out, maybe with the 0.05, you're a little more, let's say, rash in answering it. Oh, it's 0.05 points, but this one is 1 point each. So it is modeled on the quizzes. And even though we can all criticize these kind of multiple choice tests, they are important. How many people here want to maybe take the LSAT, GMAT, GRE, go on to postgraduate studies? You are going to have to get used to these tests, whether you love them or hate them. So that's very, very important. So the military-industrial complex isn't on there, but it is basically, and I would even add one, especially since we're at ASU, academic complex, because that's basically where the industries like, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, all these places kind of begin to lobby the government, and they become industrialized part of the economy with a lot of power attributable to the military. A lot comes out of the military, positive economic externalities, computers, drones. And that's one of the things in the next class you'll see about the trickle down with drones. In fact, my kid's playing a drone. I should put it up, yeah, you could say it is tied with log rolling. That's a good point, because they're going to end up then lobbying. But with log rolling, there's a lot more than just the military industrial complex. Then you've got I guess they are part of the military industrial complex if they're lobbying. You've got the State Department, all these agencies want more money. You've got a lot of companies what's the one with the GMOs? What's that company that gets a bad rap all the time? Everyone hates them. Who remembers? Monsanto. Yes, they're in there and stuff like that. Okay. Any questions about the paper or something like that? You can't see.
I
drink
kind
beer.
of have a question.
Yep. What's up?
But I don't know if it's depending on me, but I tried to register for the study using Sona, but it shows that no studies available.
They're behind. You'd have to talk to Trudy. I always take the students' word on it. They are really behind this semester. Usually they're behind and they start freaking the students out. They have permission from the university and from some international review board. But I understand. Don't stress. Don't stress. It's you do it. You do how much you can and things. And what did she say? October, I think. Is that when it opens? Don't stress too much about that, but that would be a little late if they open it October. So shoot Trudy a message and say, look, nothing's going on. I really can't do this. And then we'll see how it pans out. But don't stress. It won't. You're supposed to do it. You have to do it legally by the university standards. But if they don't have their, stuff together, what can we do, right? So don't stress.
Okay. Will it be better to just write a paper?
No, you have to do the paper anyway. Oh, in her thing. Well, you got to write the paper for the class no matter what. There is a final paper.
Okay.
But talk to her. I don't know about that stuff. That's Trudy's stuff, or the other person who's running it now.
Okay. Well, thank you.
No problem. But don't stress over it. Don't say, oh my God, I'm going to, fail the class or something.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. Did I mess up somehow?
Yeah, no, you didn't mess up. It's them, not you.
Okay.
Any other questions about anything in life? Nothing?
I have a question.
Good, Zoe.
Okay, so I got really sick and I missed two of the discussion boards this weekend. And I know that by the point system, it's structured, so we kind of can miss those.
Yeah, 2 points is easily covered.
Right. So you said there was about maybe 8?
No, there's more, 10
extra points. Okay.
Yeah,
and is that just purely doing it, or is just purely doing every single discussion board and everything like that? That's where those come from?
Yeah, no, they come from everywhere. It's they're just all the points accrued. So it's you have to get 100 points to earn an A+.
Right, yeah.
But there's about 112. So you'll be fine, missing a few things. You could literally miss 3 quizzes and still get an A+. Why do I do the system like this? Well, I do it because I don't know what's going on in people's lives, particularly in the online classes. You're busy people. Most, not all, but most of the online students are pretty mature. They're doing other things. They have kids, etc. So, I'm not going to go crazy over a discussion board. So instead of just adjudicating every, my dog's dead, my abuela is sick,
right,
I basically throw in these extra points to cover it. So, if you miss 2 discussion boards, it's not going to even have an effect on your grade.
Yeah, I'm taking 6 classes. I'm on campus. And so I don't know, I just have a lot of, I have 3 labs, and I was like, is this lab extra credit that we're supposed to do or required? And I just couldn't remember whether or not it was. But my discussion board posts are like insanely long. I mean,
Yeah.
probably like
Right.
2 pages every time.
Right. Oh,
post
well,
them.
that's good. You can collect them all, and there's your final paper. So yeah, and also for the final paper, that kind of gets me into this area. The final paper can be on anything related to national security. I don't give a specific guidance because I don't want to, because you people know what you like mostly. So, I don't want to say, oh, do something on Latin America. You don't like Latin America. You want to do something on, arms control, nuclear capabilities, etc. So you can do anything you want. My suggestion, I would say in this Zoom to kind of end it, is that try to do something that you might use for your portfolio later if you are interested in doing something like this. Like, so you want to get into intelligence, you want to get into diplomacy, you want to get into something. Even if you're, say, an engineer, you could do engineering and national security, or drones and national security, something like that. And it's always a good idea, because now so many places want a sample paper, that you use this as your sample paper. If you, get like a lot of good grammatical feedback and stuff like that on it through our, we have even online, what do they call it? A writing center, sorry. So that'll be great as well. So I'd take the final paper, and try to kind of use it into even something bigger. And if you're an honors student, you can use it for your honors thesis, etc. Anything else? Evolution. Oh, yes, I see it. Evolution of national security. Yeah, that's important. That's like constructivism. It's like national security is no longer traditional, just the state, right? The borders. It's everything from gender rights, indigenous rights, gay and lesbian rights. It gets into like bigger and larger things. So, I mean, that makes the paper kind of interesting too, especially when we do protests. We do a thing on gender rights, etc. So that's an interesting thing. Any other questions? Human security, yes. That's more constructivism, the idea that we expand our understanding of security. So like I just said, it's no longer just territory. It's a lot about human rights. So go ahead, Chrisika.
One of the upcoming discussion, or not a discussion post, one of the debates is about whether or not we should have dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yes, very contentious.
So basically, could you even expand that into like from a debate argument to a full paper if you wanted to?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a good question too, because I talk about discussion boards. Yeah, if you like really like a subject, because I don't really say to, because there's only 6 debates to choose from. But if you really want to do a paper on, say that example, you're going to do it on whether or not we should have dropped the bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and you want to do a paper on it because you're really into it and you do a lot of research, that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
Cool. Thank you.
So yeah, that's a good point to bring up, and that's good if, let's say, and that's why I kind of do it like that. If you're strapped for time, you've got kids, or you're working 24 hours, or she just said she has 6 classes, you could always finagle a paper out of your debate, particularly if you really find it an interesting topic. What else? Anything else? Well, if that's not it, if that's it, that is the exam. I'm going to post this. That's good. You don't show your face. I don't mind showing my face, right? Because I'm beautiful. So,
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Sophia. You pay for this class, or I do, or someone does. Yeah. Go ahead.
So, okay. So I know that you have a class, like over in Corral. I don't know how many classes you have, but are we, even though this is an I course, are we allowed to come in? Like if you have like, office hours?
Yeah, you get, 100%. I don't know how many people are on campus, but you're always welcome to stop by after a class or something like that. Anytime.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, not anytime, tell me, because like if I have 20 students to talk to, but yeah, that's great to meet people, and that's good for letters of recommendation. I know it's not possible for all the people, but that's one of the things. Like if you people want good letters of recommendation, try to reach out a little to your professors. I know it's tough online. Try to take professors more than once. That's one of my big suggestions about getting letters of recommendation. Tell this professor a little about yourself, your aspirations, so they don't write you a generic letter of recommendation. It's good advice. So that's a good point, coming to see me and just even to say hi, because then I can put a name to the face and all that stuff. Anything else? All right. If not, we'll end there on a Thursday night. And I hope you're enjoying the class. Any questions or comments, just reach out to me. We'll do another one of these prior to the end. So then I'll put on. Also, I'm going to put on some professional development stuff. You're going to watch a video of me and a person. Anyone here want to study law?
I'm going to be taking my LSAT in November.
Oh, good luck. Well, she got into Harvard and we did some, I did a Q&A with her on Zoom, Mackenzie, and, she's got good advice and stuff like that. So some of you, and even if you don't want to go to law school, it'd be good for graduate school and other schools and stuff like that. So nothing else, I want to post this. It opens tomorrow. If you have any questions, just email me or whatever, or in community forum. Yeah, thanks so much for coming out, Jennifer and everyone else. Take care. I'll stop the recording.